Thank you, Sir Roger. And, first, obviously, congratulate the honourable member for St Austell and Newquay in securing this debate, and perhaps even the honourable member for Gower as well. I think it's very clear that there's a large degree of agreement amongst us all this morning in many of the comments that are being made. We've heard about the benefits of the local pub in all of our constituencies, and I certainly support as much as I possibly can the pubs in my own constituency. And I have to say, listening to many members, I think that a fairly strong case has been made this morning for minimum pricing in alcohol, given the dangers we hear of the very high levels of alcohol in some of these alcopops and other such drinks. I've certainly noticed an increase in recent times in the number of the craft 0% beers that I've seen being produced, be it from Tennant's Hee Haw or Brewdog's Nanny State. I think they had a deliberate go at the establishment when they came up with that name, but there are many others that are now starting to come into the market as a 0% alternative, showing that it can be done while still retaining flavour. So clearly, we do agree in many of the points that we're making, and I suppose the one thing that we can absolutely be certain that we do all agree on is that beer is good. It's good for our economy, it's good for our communities, and it's definitely good, and obviously best served while watching Scotland win at rugby. Almost like most worthwhile inventions, it's also been suggested that actually beer was invented in Scotland, in some form at least. Evidence has been discovered that fermented beverages were being brewed in Scotland, possibly as early as 400 BC. In my own constituency of Midlothian, there had been a brewery in Dalkeith since at least 1789. The last remaining brewery, McLennan and Urquhart, brewed a very fine selection of sweet ales, I'm led to believe, and business thrived in Midlothian for the best part of a century. Unfortunately, it closed in the late 1950s and was demolished in the 1960s. Sadly, brewing left Midlothian for quite some time. I think that picture was common across much of Scotland and further across the 60s and 70s. The economics of that time made it impossible for breweries and pubs to survive, and closures were savage. The 60s may have been swinging, but there wasn't much to smile about in brewing terms. High unemployment, shipyard closures, and the decline of traditional industries was a common picture across Scotland. To put that in perspective, what meant for breweries was a picture just as bleak. In 1920, there were 62 breweries in Scotland. By 1960, just 26, and by 1970, only 11 remained. What we must learn from that period is that consequences of not nurturing the right business environment for breweries creates a set of consequences that can be far-reaching across communities, can impact on national, local and microeconomies, and can have a knock-on effects for the pubs and jobs too. While we now witness something of a beer revolution, as the member for St Austell and Newquay put it himself, there's a greater amount of consumer searching for new flavours and simply good beer. New breweries are starting up more and more frequently. In Midlothian, I'm pleased now that there are new breweries flourishing and growing, and positively encourage all members to visit my constituency and have a look around those and taste their produce. The first of these breweries to rekindle Midlothian's brewing history was Stewart Brewing in my own hometown of Loanhead. Founded in 2004 and led by a team of ambitious, passionate, hard-working beer enthusiasts, the business has grown and expanded considerably. Some may suggest my own contribution and appreciation for their very tasty craft IPAs has undoubtedly contributed towards that. I was also fortunate to have the opportunity to visit the newly established Cross Borders Brewery in S-Bank. Clear speaking from the team there, they have an absolute desire to expand, to contribute to the local national economy and to be a key player in the beer market. In fact, all across Scotland, there's a rapidly growing industry, and it's the one that we're embracing. The food and drink sector is of vital importance to Scotland's economy, with 1 in 5 people in Scottish manufacturing working in the sector. The SNP Scottish Government has been working hard to support this key sector, and since 2008, we've supported 173 food and drinks companies and organisations to achieve a 77% improvement in their access to local suppliers and a 62% increase in new market penetration. Scottish food and drink exports are now worth some £4.8 billion every year. In February this year, the SNP Scottish Government announced business rates relief for the hospitality sector, which will save Scottish pubs around £6 million. The package also includes a one-year cap on business rate increases in Scotland for the hospitality sector, capped at 12.5%, benefiting a further 8,000 businesses. Bridget Simmons, the Chief Executive of the Scottish Beer and Pub Association, on this announcement said, "The introduction of a business rates cap set at 12.5% is welcome and shows that the Scottish Government has listened to the concerns of Scottish pubs and other hospitality businesses." Analysis by the Scottish Beer and Pub Association suggests that the cap will save Scottish pubs around £6 million, with pubs standing to benefit by an average of £4,700. Many microbreweries may also benefit from the small business bonus scheme, giving up to 100% relief in many cases. So what can we do to help this very important industry, and what can we learn from Scotland's approach? Personally, I agree that with the views that many have raised, a cut in beer duty is essential, but I fear it might not alone not be enough, and I would like to see the UK Government going further, and evidence to do so is compelling. I of course think that businesses should pay their tax, and this should be fair. In 2015, beer duty comprised 49% of a brewer's turnover, and the Beer and Pub Association calculate the beer and pub sector is one of the most highly taxed across the country. Brewers also face even more taxes, with business rates, employment taxes and corporation tax added on top. Once costs of production are taken into account, a brewer on average will just make 2 or 3 pence a pint as profit. For all brewers, but particularly for the types of brewers in my own constituency, this is stifling potential for growth and the ability to employ more staff. The SNP support a better, fairer, evidence-based way of taxing alcohol. We need to find the right balance, and I very much hope that the debate here today will provide beer for thought for the Chancellor ahead of his upcoming budget.
Dad.